instructional purposes are not particularly beneficial either, as most of the available impact studies seem to indicate, including the famous international PISA evaluations. The director of this program recently explained about the process of digitizing education that, if anything, it makes things worse. In line with these fears, several individuals and institutional players have opted to play safe. In England, for example, several head teachers have threatened to send the police and social services into homes that let their children play violent video games. In Taiwan, a country whose school children are among the most successful in the world, there is a law that lays down heavy fines for parents who, on the one hand, expose children under 24 months to any digital applications whatsoever, and on the other hand, do not sufficiently limit the time that 2 to 18-year-olds spend on such activities. The stated objective is not to exceed 30 consecutive minutes. In China, the authorities have taken drastic measures to regulate video game use among minors, on the grounds that this negatively impacts on their education. Indeed, children and adolescents there are no longer allowed to play during the time slot normally reserved for sleep, 10 p.m. to 8 a.m., or to exceed 90 minutes of daily exposure during the week, 180 minutes at weekends and during school holidays. In the United States, a number of senior executives in the digital industries, including Steve Jobs, the legendary former boss of Apple, seem very keen to protect their offspring from the various digital tools they market. It would even seem, says the New York Times, that a dark consensus about screens and kids begins to emerge in Silicon Valley. This consensus is apparently strong enough to go beyond the domestic context. These geeks feel impelled to enroll their children in expensive private schools where there are no screens. As Chris Anderson, former editor of Wired and now chief executive of a robotics company, explains, "My 5 kids, 6 to 17, accuse me and my wife of being fascists and overly concerned about tech, and they say that none of their friends have the same rules. That's because we have seen the dangers of technology firsthand. I've seen it in myself. I don't want to see that happen to my kids." In his view, on the scale between candy and crack cocaine, it's closer to crack cocaine. As the French journalist Guillaume Erner, who holds a doctorate in sociology, puts it, the moral of the story is, you can put your children in front of screens, but those who make the screens will continue to put their children in front of books. Who should we believe? At the heart of this tangle of contradictions, who is bluffing and who is wrong? Where is the truth? Do our children, nourished by screens, comprise the smartest generation ever, as Don Tapscott, a consultant specializing in the impact of new technologies, assures us? Or are they rather the dumbest generation, as Mark Bauerlein, professor of English at Emory University, puts it? More generally, is the current digital revolution an opportunity for our offspring, or a grim mechanism for creating imbeciles? The point of this book is to answer that question. For the sake of clarity, the analysis is organized into 3 main parts. The first assesses the reality of the original basic concept, one still very much alive, of the digital native. The second analyzes the twofold qualitative and quantitative nature of the digital activities of our children and adolescents. The third examines the impact of these activities. Different fields are then considered: academic success, development, and health. Before continuing, however, 3 points must be clarified. First, although it attempts to conform to the most rigorous academic standards, this book does not meet the formal criteria of scientific writing. This is mainly because it hopes to be accessible to everyone: parents, health professionals, teachers, students, etc. But also because it is fueled by real anger. I am stunned by the partial, biased, and unfair nature of the way many mainstream media treat screens. As we will hear throughout the book, there is a huge gap between the unsettling reality of available evidence and the frequently reassuring, or indeed